When I first began to study Carl Jung, I wasn't looking for ways to conquer women. I was searching for myself. And yet, I quickly realized something profound. The deeper I went into my own psyche, the more my relationships transformed. Attraction, I discovered, is not about tricks or manipulation. It's about alignment, authenticity, and self-awareness. Jung taught that each of us carries both light and shadow within. Most people repress their shadow, the parts of themselves they dislike or fear, hoping others won't notice. But women, often unconsciously, do notice. They sense inauthenticity. They feel when a man is hiding from himself. So, the first step in applying Jung's wisdom to attraction is not about learning lines or strategies. It is about turning inward. I ask myself, what am I ashamed of? What parts of myself do I try to hide? Where am I living a life that isn't truly mine? By confronting my shadow and owning it instead of denying it, I became less defensive, less anxious, and more grounded. And women responded to that grounding. They were drawn not to a mask I was wearing, but to the authenticity of someone who had faced his inner world. Attraction, Jung would say, begins when you are no longer split inside yourself. When your inner world is integrated, your outer world becomes magnetic. Jung's concept of archetypes changed the way I understood both myself and women. Archetypes are universal patterns, ancient images living in the collective unconscious that shape how we act, love, and relate. I began to see that women are not just drawn to looks or status. They are drawn to archetypal energy. And as a man, I could either live small and disconnected from those energies, or I could awaken them within myself. There is a hero archetype, the man who faces challenges with courage, who moves toward his goals despite fear. There is a lover archetype, the man who feels deeply, who creates intimacy and passion. There is a sage archetype, the man of wisdom, who reflects, listens, and guides. When I lived only as one archetype, I became unbalanced. Too much hero, and I was aggressive or competitive. Too much lover, and I was needy or overly emotional. Too much sage, and I was detached. But when I integrated these archetypes, allowing myself to be courageous, passionate, and wise, my presence shifted. I didn't need to convince women of anything. My very energy spoke for itself. And here's the truth Jung revealed to me. Women often see in us the archetypes we refuse to see in ourselves. If you deny your hero, a woman may challenge you until you awaken it. If you deny your lover, she may withdraw, sensing the absence of passion. If you deny your sage, she may lose respect, feeling you lack depth. By embracing these archetypes consciously, I stopped living in reaction and started living in creation. I became the kind of man women are not just attracted to, but inspired by. One of Jung's most revolutionary ideas is the Anima, the inner feminine that lives within every man. For years, I ignored this concept, thinking it was abstract or irrelevant. But when I finally turned toward it, everything about my relationships changed. The Anima represents sensitivity, creativity, intuition, and emotional depth. Most men, conditioned by society, are taught to suppress these qualities. We are told to be strong, rational, and detached. But Jung insisted that true wholeness comes only when we acknowledge and integrate our anima. When I denied my inner feminine, I projected outward. I idealized women, putting them on pedestals, expecting them to carry what I refused to embody within myself. This made me needy, dependent, and sometimes resentful. I wasn't meeting women as equals. I was searching for someone to complete me. But the more I cultivated my anima, by listening to my intuition, expressing vulnerability, embracing art, and respecting my emotions, the less desperate I became for validation from women. Suddenly, conversations flowed more naturally. Intimacy became deeper, not because I was trying to impress, but because I was meeting women from a place of wholeness rather than lack. Jung would say, When you integrate your anima, women stop being mirrors for your unconscious needs. They become companions, partners, fellow travelers. Attraction grows not out of emptiness, but out of abundance. And here lies the paradox. By embracing your inner feminine, you become more powerfully masculine. Women sense this balance. They are drawn to men who are not afraid of their softness, because that softness amplifies their strength. Jung called the great task of life individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself, uniting conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, masculine and feminine. And here is a secret I learned. Nothing is more attractive to women than a man who is truly on his path. When I was younger, I thought attraction was about tactics, saying the right words, looking a certain way, displaying confidence. But all of this was fragile. The moment I faced rejection, my confidence collapsed. Individuation gave me a different kind of confidence, one rooted in purpose. I asked myself, what is my calling? What unique contribution can I make to the world? How can I live in alignment with my deepest values? As I committed to my path, I noticed something. Women began to treat me differently. They respected my time, my vision, my mission. They weren't just drawn to me. They were drawn to the energy of a man who knew where he was going. Jung teaches that individuation makes you magnetic because it connects you to the self, the center of your being that transcends ego. From this place, you no longer chase approval. You radiate presence. And women feel that. They can tell when a man is grounded in something larger than himself. They can tell when he lives with purpose. That is what makes them lean in, curious, inspired. Individuation, then, is not just a spiritual journey. It is a foundation of true attraction. Because when you're fully yourself, you give women permission to be fully themselves. And that, more than any tactic, creates the deepest connection of all. One of Jung's most fascinating insights is that beneath our personal experiences lies a collective unconscious, a shared layer of the psyche filled with universal images and symbols. These symbols, called archetypes, shape the way humans connect, love, and dream. At first, this idea felt distant, but then I noticed how powerful symbols are in attraction and relationships. When I spoke about my goals, women were less drawn to details and more drawn to the story. The archetypal meaning behind my path. Was I embodying the hero? Was I living as the explorer? Was I moving towards something that represented growth and transformation? Women are deeply intuitive to archetypal energy. It's not just about what you say, it's about the symbolic resonance of your presence. If your life carries no symbolic weight, if you drift without purpose or pattern, attraction weakens. But if your life feels like a story worth living, women want to be part of that story. I began to ask myself, what archetype am I living right now? Am I the warrior, fighting for what matters? Am I the sage, offering wisdom and reflection? Am I the lover, opening space for intimacy and beauty? By consciously embodying these symbols, I stopped being random and became mythic. My life carried meaning, and women were drawn to that meaning. Jung's lesson here is simple but profound. Attraction isn't just personal, it's archetypal. When you live as if your life has symbolic depth, women sense it, and they are pulled not just to you, but to the myth you are living. Perhaps the most difficult, yet most rewarding, of Jung's teachings is the concept of the shadow. The shadow is everything about ourselves we repress. Anger, jealousy, lust, insecurity. We pretend these parts don't exist, but they show up anyway, often in destructive ways. When I ignored my shadow, it controlled me. I would project it onto women, blaming them for what I refuse to face in myself. I would become jealous, controlling, or defensive. Attraction turned toxic because I was not in control of my own darkness. But Jung taught me the shadow is not the enemy. It is potential energy. By owning it, I can transform it into power. For example, when I acknowledged my anger instead of denying it, I discovered courage. When I admitted my jealousy, I uncovered a deep desire for loyalty and security. When I faced my lust, I found passion and vitality that, when expressed consciously, became a source of connection instead of shame. And women notice. A man who has faced his shadow radiates depth. He is less likely to collapse under pressure or hide behind masks. He is not dangerous in a reckless way, but powerful in a controlled way. Women are drawn to that combination of strength and honesty. The paradox is clear. The more you repress your shadow, the weaker you appear. But the more you integrate it, the more magnetic you become. Jung would say, only by befriending your shadow can you truly stand in your full presence. As I look back on my journey with Jung's teachings, one truth stands out. Attraction is not about chasing, persuading, or manipulating. It is about wholeness. When I tried to impress women with tricks, charm, or appearances, the results were shallow and temporary. But when I turned inward, facing my shadow, awakening my archetypes, integrating my anima, and walking the path of individuation, something remarkable happened. Women began to be drawn to me not because of what I was doing, but because of who I had become. Jung teaches that the self, the deepest center of our being, is the goal of life. When we live from the self, we stop clinging to masks. We stop projecting our wounds onto others. We stop living in fear of rejection. Instead, we embody presence, balance, and purpose. Women feel this. They can sense when a man is connected to his deeper self. They are not only attracted, they feel safe, inspired, and alive in his presence. To apply Jung's wisdom in relationships, I keep 3 guiding principles. Authenticity over appearance. I show up as I am, flaws, gifts, and everything in between. This honesty builds trust faster than any performance. Integration over repression. I embrace my shadow, my inner feminine, my archetypes. I don't try to hide or deny parts of myself. This integration creates depth, and depth creates attraction. Purpose over approval. I walk my path with clarity and direction. When I live with purpose, women are not the source of my validation. They are companions on the journey. In the end, Jung showed me that attraction is spiritual. It is not about conquering women. It is about conquering myself. And when I live in wholeness, connection flows naturally. So if you want to apply Jung's teachings to love and attraction, remember, the ultimate magnetism is becoming the fullest version of yourself. Wholeness is irresistible.